In the shadow of an old bridge, and beneath the watchful boughs of an ancient forest, a new chapter begins. Finnian Ashe and his faithful hound Patch leave the last traces of Hollowmere behind and venture deeper into a world neither of them truly understands. The road ahead is no longer marked by village fences or familiar faces. It winds through forgotten woods, across hidden trails, and towards mysteries that have long waited far longer than either traveler can imagine. Already, the world has shown its true nature. A raven spoke prophecy. A boggart traded passage for a meal. Luck itself now follows Finn's footsteps. The stories his mother told beside the bakery hearth were not stories at all. They were warning. What waits beyond the next bend in the path? More wonders? More dangers? For now, Finn does not know. But somewhere ahead, hidden beneath the layers of folklore, magic, and forgotten history, destiny is beginning to stir. Well, hi, hello, everybody, and welcome back. That's right. Today, my friends, we are finally continuing our Legend in the Mist campaign. And when I say continuing, I kind of mean re-beginning. If you're starting here, totally fine. But a story is to be had in the Legend in the Mist. I say, let's break it down. Well, hi, hello, everybody. My name is Turk. Welcome back to the Grouch Couch. Yes, around here, all different kinds of solo RPG things, but today we're playing Legend in the Mist. This is technically going to be episode 1 of A Fire and Ash, the new beginning. But there was a previous 4 episodes detailing out the origin of this character's story, if you want to go back and watch, but you do not have to. Absolutely not. Before all that, though, I do want to say, big shout out to Son of Oak, because your boy did win their whole collector's edition of the books and things we will be playing with today, so I did get them a little bit early, alrighty. But have no fear, if you're watching this early enough, all of your stuff will be shipping sooner rather than later, I'm sure, alright? And if you have not picked any of this stuff up, there will be links and descriptions you could use to help support the show if you're feeling fancy. That's right. And before we continue, big shout out to all the Couch crew members that have been supporting the show. Thank you guys so much, whether that's channel members, Ko-Fi supporters, or brand new Patreon, if you want extra little things. Check it out. Link in description. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. Thank you, thank you. Now, I'm excited to get back into some story. That's right, we have our table cam set up. We have our little beautiful character sheet. We will be playing Finnian Ashe. Now, I did a session 0, basically, of this series, which I'm sure a lot of you guys already watched, explaining the character and how we're going to be playing. I do have, right here, bam, my solo rules that we're going to actually be following. So I'm going to be playing it my way. If you guys were curious as to how this whole thing works, we're going to be basically testing it out and playing it now. Yes. And we have all of our cards here. I did do it in dry erase marker, so some of it has rubbed off a little bit. But have no fear, we'll go through it as we need to. And we're going to check comments of session 0, because all of my stories here are collaborative storytelling, all right? So you guys can throw out suggestions of NPC names and other kinds of fun stuff. That's right, so let's check comments. All right, so very good. I actually went over just to double check. A lot of you guys had submitted NPC names for possible NPCs we might run into. As you can see, we have a total of 6 different from all you guys. And it looks like OBX Wildcat 1 actually submitted some after I'd already printed this, so I wrote it in manually. And if you guys send in more than 3 suggestions, I just take your first 3 names, all right? 1 to 3, that's what you get, all right? And I'll put them on the roll chart, okay? So if you see that you put like 8 and I only took 3, that's why. Also, from the suggestions here, someone suggested Cosmo DS7 OW, anyway. Said the negative tag for Patch could be some kind of bad habit, like chasing chickens. And the first thing I thought was distracted. That's actually perfect, because we could be trying to do something and the dog is still kind of young, right? He could get distracted and run off and do something else. There's also some suggestions about them evolving over time. Like he could turn into an old dog, you know, and have old dog habits. So I think distracted is a very good puppy kind of thing. And also the art above us, you guys know, designed by Abstracto. There will be a link in description if you want your own character art done. All right, you can commission him. The puppy, I need to readjust it. The dog should be about waist height. He's very large dog. So just keep that in mind. Now on the table, we have everything that we need for today. I also just have laid out the GM screen, all right, just in front of us in case we want to check it at all. I know it looks really, really busy. It's just like a lot of Legend in the Mist stuff, but you know what? It's the way that we're doing it, so we're going to do it. Okay, all that being said, we're going to begin our adventure. The best way to begin is by beginning. So the way that we're going to be doing this, my friends, is we are going to be following the solo gameplay loop. We're going to build out our scene. We're going to see if there's a task or a challenge here. We're going to resolve that task or challenge by doing an action, and then we're going to transition into our next scene. And in every one of my episodes, I do my best to do 2 to 4 full scenes in all the episodes, all right? And I also want to say here, I plan to do 2 or 3 episodes of this here Legend of the Mist thing, but if we get enough love from you guys, we'll do way more than that, all right? So make sure to leave a like here on this video if you want to see more episodes. Cool. So we're going to begin by doing our first scene. Every scene begins by determining where you are, what's going on, what's the atmosphere. You're basically going to describe things out. And in my games of Legend of the Mist, this part is really important because you can just describe and describe and describe. I already have some beginning ideas in my head as to where we are, but what I like to do is I like to just start talking, and I like to just kind of let my brain go when it comes to describing out these things. If you're doing another system, my suggestion is to do 3 main attributes of the scene, 3 main things that are important to you, because more than that, you might get a little confused. There's too much, right? But for this game, it's a bunch of little stuff, right? So we're going to try to just point out all the little stuff. And I actually want this other light on. There we go. Gives a little more light here for the table. Okay, so for our first scene, we're going to begin describing. In my head, several days have passed since Hollowmere disappeared behind the trees, and the road north that we're following is more than a worn trail now. A small, narrow ribbon of earth threading its way through the wilderness. The moss creeps over the old stones scattered beside the paths, and roots twist across the ground like sleeping serpents. And the forest here is very large. The trees are huge, and the forest feels older than the village ever did. Older than the bridge, probably older than Finnian himself. As we're walking, the morning mist still lingers beneath the branches, despite the rising sun in the sky. There are beads of dew that cling to spider webs that are stretched between ferns of branches, turning them into little tiny nets of wet little silver. As we walk, the scent of the damp soil and pine needles and fallen leaves hangs heavily in the air. Somewhere high above, we can hear those crows calling to no one. At this point, Finn's boots are for sure stained from mud from days of travel. His backpack sits a little bit lower on his shoulders than when he first left home, worn into place from hours of long walking. Importantly, the burn underneath his sleeve occasionally burns. Never enough to stop him in place, but enough to remind him that he's being guided towards something. Whenever the path bends the wrong way or something draws his eyes elsewhere, the pain in his arm sharpens just a little bit. Obviously, Patch trots faithfully beside him. His paws barely make a sound on the forest floor as they walk. Every so often, he disappears somewhere in some undergrowth to investigate some kind of scent before emerging again right behind Finn's feet. Tails just wagging and ears up, alert. Fallen branches become obstacles that these two just step or leap over. And of course, mushrooms become subjects of intense canine inspection. This forest here is a mystery to Finn, but to Patch, I think it's an endless collection of just fascinating smells. And where do we begin? I think we begin as ahead, the trail vanishes around another bend between some towering oaks that are, just draped in moss. And as we're about to approach the bend in the road, around a corner that we can't quite yet see, Finn knows for the first time his life is just full of possibility. Everything is laid out in front of him. But that is our current scene where we start. Now, while you're doing that, of course, you can ask questions if you're ever unsure of something, which is the other part here. But next, that brings us to our task. Now, not every single scene is going to contain some kind of a challenge, okay? Challenges are for detailed things, right? Sometimes a task can be as simple as rolling to see if you can hear something, right? Challenges are whenever those detailed rolls come into play, because in Legend of the Mist, you've got quick rolls and you've got detailed rolls. And challenges are for those detailed rolls. It's important to remember. So a task is just a task, but a challenge is a challenge. Now, I even have it here in these notes that if you are unsure, you can ask a yes or no question to see if there even is a challenge here. Like, does a challenge present itself? You could roll yes or no, at which point you could begin creating said challenge. As a fun extra option, if you did manage to pick up these Twilight cards, the Twilight deck right here, it's a deck of cards, you guys, so you could roll yes or no, and if you get a yes, then you can literally just shuffle up these cards and pick your challenge, right? Because these range from Goat Race to Poisoned Worm, Gallowy, whoever that is, Mystery, Support, Aggressor, Quarry, Sapper, Charge. We've got Azaria right there, which I don't think I actually have Sapper in my thing here, because Sapper, I didn't understand what it meant, and I didn't want to include it, so I just didn't. It was too complicated, and also, when I read the description, it didn't, to me, it wouldn't drive a solo story forward. Now, also, if any of these, you're playing with this, and any of these make sense in your story, you could literally just be like, oh, that's my challenge, and you can just pull it out and put it down. Because there are some in here that I do actually want to explore over the course of these episodes, because they just seem really neat. Okay, and as a reminder, challenges do not need to be like conflicts, like enemies, right? Challenges can also be nice things, you know? Like a shrine that might give you some kind of bonus or something, right? Like in Skyrim, you just stumble upon a shrine. A challenge could literally just be a shrine. But the challenge there is you're still gonna have to make some kind of a dice roll to appease the shrine, right? So it's not necessarily a conflict, but it is still something, right? So, being that I just explained all that, I say, let's ask a yes or no question to see if there is a challenge here, or if we could just make a task roll, because every scene should have some kind of dice roll of some kind, but I don't know if it should be a challenge or just a task. So we're gonna come up here to our yes or no oracle table right here. See if I can make it bigger for it. There we are. And we're gonna roll 2d6. This is the first time I get to officially roll with my acorn dice, man. How exciting is that? These bad boys right here. Very exciting stuff. So we're going to roll just to see if there is a challenge here. Does a challenge present itself? We're gonna roll it in the box. Here we go. Ooh, fun. We got a 5 and we got a 6, which is yes and. So yes and always means that yes, whatever your question was happened. And then and means something on top of it, right? Because you can also get yes but, which is kind of like the negative. Like, yeah, that does happen, but not exactly, right? But this is yes and. So there is a challenge and something else presents itself as well. So we can remember that and as we go into our challenge creation. So we're gonna choose a challenge type, all right? This is kind of how we figure out as we go around that bend there in the forest, what do we see? What is there, right? So we're gonna roll, or we're gonna choose our challenge types. We're gonna come down here to our challenge types, and we can see that 7 actually got cut off. I mentioned it on the drive-through RPG list, but down here, all these are in order. So if you actually come to 7, you'll see that 7 is aggressor. All right, so 7 is aggressor, if we get it. What do we see as we come around the bend of this here forest? That is another 6, and what is that? A 6. That's 2 6s, which makes it a 12. An ancient power. Oh, y'all can't even see. That's 2 6s. An ancient power, which is also doubles, but we weren't asking yes or no question. If you want, is an optional rule. Every time you roll doubles, you can do a random event, but I'm not going to do that because we get a little crazy, all right? So, ancient power. So you can come all the way down here to 12. We can see ancient power. We have its suggested tags, maybe what it has, what's going on. This is a crazy way to start our story. Let me show you guys. Ancient power, all the way down here, all of our suggested tags and everything. But before we even get to that, we need to continue on. So, as the second thing, I have determined its goal or behavior. So, the idea is that if you have an ancient power, you got to figure out what that ancient power is exactly, and then you can determine what its goal or behavior is, right? So, to me, it's like determine the type, what it is, and then its goal or behavior, right? So to determine what this thing is, this ancient power, we're going to come to our scene descriptors roll chart right here. If you have other kinds of roll charts, you can absolutely use those. Or if there's some kind of ancient power that just makes sense in your story right now, like if we come down here to ancient power, we have some examples. Sleeping God, ancient dragon, forgotten magic, right? So honestly, we could probably slap down a shrine right here. But before we do that, we're going to roll on these 2 words to see what we get. And we're going to use a D66. All right. And you read these flat, like you do not add these together. So a 3 and a 1 is 31. All right. Fair enough. Let's roll it. We're going to do this twice. I kind of want to use the pebble dice a little bit too. Where did that other one go? Oh, it's in the corner. What you doing in the corner? That is a 1 and a 1, which is 11. Again, you could do double. It's crazy we got doubles twice. 1 and 1 for us is desperate. And then we're going to come to the other chart. I'm going to roll the pebble dice time. Desperate what? What is this ancient power? Desperate 52. And I always just read it left to right. You could do it however you want. Desperate trading. Okay, trading is tough. Desperate trading. Oh, interesting. Let me think for a second. So I'm thinking a lot here. So desperate in trading under the umbrella here of ancient power doesn't sound aggressive to me in any way, which I think is good in our favor. But it does sound like something old and powerful and trapped. So in my mind, I'm thinking maybe some kind of ancient spirit that cannot leave here. Or it could be in the literal sense, like a cursed trader, someone like a seller of some kind, like a merchant. But if it's a merchant, how would ancient power really come into play here? So maybe not merchant, unless it's like an ancient godly merchant. Maybe we can combine the two. If you have thoughts, let me know down in comments below. That's the fun thing about solo RPGs. You kind of like get to use your imagination and figure out stuff, you know what I mean? So as we come around the corner, we can see off the side of the road, there's an old standing stone, and floating nearby it, only that their legs are missing, right? But the rest of their body seems normal, but they are floating, is some kind of spirit guardian here, right? It's powerful, but also powerless at the same time. And as we see it, we stop for a second. But as it turns and looks at us, it smiles. It seems friendly. But by the look of this thing, it's got a big old backpack, and maybe off to the side of the shrine, there's a little table full of objects. So it's a bound spirit that is also a merchant that needs to trade with us. As we approach this guy, first we need to go back to our thing, okay? Before we take any kind of action, we need to go back to our thing. We need to figure out what all this is, all right? PDF, yes, okay. So now we know what it is, and we know, I'm assuming its goal is that it's desperate, it needs to trade with us, but it doesn't trade in gold. It trades in like promises or memories or something like that, all right? That's its goal. So we know what it is, and we know what its goal is. Now we need to roll up its challenge rating, all right? And it's weird to do a merchant as a challenge rating, but do it anyway, because while you're playing, it might come up, all right? So to determine our challenge rating, we're gonna roll a d6. I'm gonna use the pebble dice here. We're gonna roll up d6. All right, that is a 5. That's tough. That is a huge challenge rating. Oh, okay. 5 means that's its challenge rating. But that also means we need to determine its limits. To determine its limits, we have 3 limits here. Hard, medium, and easy are its limit. I'm actually going to use these cool little cards here. So I'm gonna pull out 3 of these just so we can determine its limits here. And if we can't think of any, what we can do on our PDF, we can actually come all the way down here to ancient power. If we can't think of any, I have included some suggestions, okay? Our limits are understand, banish, or seal. Now, if it wants to trade with us, we have to come up with 3 limits for this challenge. So we have 3 different ideas as to how we might be able to get through it. And the reason we're still writing down 3 is because one of these things might not work out for us, and we might be able to roll again and try something else, all right? But we need to remember failing and consequences and everything else in the Legend of the Mist system, okay? But let's come up with 3 here. Maybe persuade could be the easy one for us. Oh, let's go back into the other screen. Sorry, I keep forgetting to switch. Persuade could be the easy one. So out of 5, it's a CR -1, so it's 4. Persuade at 4, and then banish, which we probably cannot do, is going to be 5, and then maybe tricking an old spirit would be the hard one. Trick at a 6. Now, this is kind of fun when it comes to these challenge limits. A lot of times in Legend of the Mist, you're supposed to attack or, you know what I mean, roll multiple times on something. But you're playing solo, all right? So remember, you can play however you want. If you feel like you've done one of the limits well enough, according to your numbers, then you can defeat it and move on, all right? But in this situation, we might be able to persuade once, say some other stuff, persuade again, just to be able to get whatever it is that we want, all right? But also, this is kind of, I'm doing this as an example, but if it was just me playing by myself, I probably wouldn't even write up these limits. I would just go over to them and see what the deal was and make a transaction, you know what I mean? But since we're doing this in full today, to help you guys, that's what we're doing. All right, now back to the PDF. We know our limits. So now we can think about any kind of tags and statuses that might represent the challenge's defenses, all right? And if we remember, everything is player forward in Legend of the Mist. So they might have something that might influence our rolls. And on the backside of our thing here, we actually have tags, all right? So instead of limits, we have our tags right now. To get our tags, a challenge can have any number of tags and statuses up to its CR limit. Up to, all right, is what I put in here. Up to its CR limit. It's the underlined bit right here. Up to, all right? So that doesn't mean we have to do 5. If you can only think of 1, that's totally cool, all right? So do we think he's going to have any kind of tags? And since I'm unsure, I can roll a yes or no question. So I'm like, he could be, you know, bound. Could be a tag here. But the shrine might also have magic, so shrine magic could have its back, right? And I think that could be a negative tag towards us. Like maybe the shrine has its own thing going on. So actually I'm going to put a tag in here of just shrine magic, right? And I like how general the magic and stuff is in Legend of the Mist. You can kind of just, you know, come up with whatever makes sense. All right, so he's going to have a tag of shrine magic. And we could do up to 5. This is a very difficult encounter, I'm realizing right now. Okay, now we have our tags and we have our statuses. At this point, before you take your action, because that's the next step here, we know what's going on. Once once the challenge is established, we can play normally using the rules, all right? We make our moves as appropriate. Whenever it's unclear what a challenge does next, we can roll on the action table, or we could use yes or no. So also in this, actions are kind of, for challenges, actions are basically consequences, all right? But I actually have up here, and I suggest you guys do this too, I have the consequence oracle from the actual narrator book that I do actually plan to use whenever I roll and fail rolls and stuff like that. There's a lot in here. You roll a d66 and then you roll a 6, all right? And this could extend your encounters by a lot, all right? It really could. Or you could just roll over here on this little chart that I provided, okay? Reveal ancient knowledge, warp the environment, etc. For an ancient power, that's kind of, yeah, that's a lot. Okay, so as we approach this guy, we're going to ask some yes or no questions. And we're going to, and again, I like to just talk, and whatever comes out of my mouth is kind of what becomes canon. But I'm going to scroll back up here to my yes or no oracle table so I have it ready, and then we're just going to start. And Finn is very naive to the outside world, right? He doesn't know very much. So Finnian and Patch are just going to walk right over, and as they get closer, they notice the magical presence of this guy. And I feel like as we get closer, we can feel the vibrations of this shrine, and maybe even hear some kind of low semitones vibrating out from it. And out next to it is a table, and I'm imagining that this table is real rickety and real old, but as we get closer to it, we can see there are old magical runes just drawn all over this table, like spell work. But on the table, there's a bunch of different kinds of objects. But before we figure out what those objects are and what he's trying to sell, we look up to this spirit, and because of those runes, I'm also imagining that on his cheeks, he's got these runes just carved into his cheeks, these magical runes. And he looks right at us and he goes, classic vendor Resident Evil voice goes, "Oi, I see you've been interested in me wares. Can I be real with you? Well, I'm kind of trapped here. And the only way I can move on, it's been a long time since someone's came up this road, and I gotta tell you, the only way that I can move on is if I make a sale. But I do not sell in normal currency, my friend. I sell in something." And we're gonna ask some yes or no question. Does he sell in memories? We'll pull up our little oracle table here, and we'll roll for it. We got a 5 and a 5, which is a 10. So yes, he sells in memories, but also that makes it doubles, which makes it a random event, as we can see right here. And I want to point out that on this here chart, the 5 and the 9 have gone missing. But as I pointed out, I'll actually open it up for us. As I pointed out over here, in this little update right here, numbers 5 through 9 were cut off in formatting. 5 is hidden opportunity and 9 is NPC action. So hidden opportunity and NPC action. My suggestion is to write it down somewheres. If you print it out yourself, you could write it in underneath, right? But I'm just going to put it here on the sheet until I get the time to actually go in and update it, because I realized that I didn't save the format, and so I'm going to have to recreate that whole page. So it's going to be fun. Don't worry about it, all right? That's why it's for free, everybody. Yes, okay. Okay, so now we have it here. We know what 5, we know what 9 is. So we got random events. So yes, he does trade in memories. He says, "I trade in memories." And then something happens. So we're going to roll our 2d12. And that is a 2 and a 4. Oh, that's a 2 and a 2, which means environment change. Oh. And then since I got doubles again, you could roll another random event if you want to, but I'm not going to do that indefinitely, because then we would spiral and everything's crazy. But we got environment change. And so I actually want to come down here now to scene descriptor, and I think I just want one from the second table. I don't even want another one, just from the second table here. That is a 23 sacred. Oh. So as he says, "I trade in memories," I think that we set our hands down on the table and we are teleported, or at least visually it looks like that. We're no longer in the forest. We look around and we are in some kind of sacred place. I actually do need another word. What does this sacred place consist of? That is a 4 and a 5. 45 is preparing. Preparing doesn't help us at all, but we're transported to a sacred place. So I was envisioning this shrine as just like a large piece of concrete, you know what I mean? Like a statue. I didn't picture it as anything extra, but maybe as we go into this other place now, all of a sudden the shrine is like a shrine to, we're dealing with a merchant here, so maybe it's like a trading shrine, right? That it literally looks like a standing merchant he's got this statue looks like thumbs up, and he's got like a a backpack on, and he's like trying to trade. So like this is like the spirit realm for all the merchants. We're creating weird lore right now. There is a guild of traveling magical merchants. that's what we've made. Goodness. And we're transported into this other place. And I think as we're transported there, we're in like this crazy magical market where all these other merchants are like preparing their tables and setting stuff up. And he looks at us and he's like, but don't pay attention to them, all right? 2 steps back and we're back in the forest. Stand right there. You are now in the realm of merchants. You know, we're a nice little guild that like to trade in things, and I'm trying to get me up the ranks. So I need to trade in memories, all right? So, do I have anything you might like? And Finn looks down at the table, looks back up at him, first of all, and looks around, and he's like, my goodness, it seems that I've come a long way from Hollowmere. Mister, I've never seen anything like this before. And I think we looked down at the ground, and we could see Patch the dog is like jumping back and forth. And like Finn's like, why is he doing that? But we know that the dog is teleporting into the forest and back into the Merchant's Guild, and into the forest and back into the Merchant's Guild. And the dog's like, Finn's like, I think my dog's freaking out. We're gonna look down at the table. We need to figure out some items that he might have for sale. But also, do we want to try to overcome this guy? Because maybe he could give us something else, you know? Now I'm looking at my limits here and I'm like, is there anything we could do? Because if we overcome these fully, right now I'm thinking that we could get something else instead of trading for an object. If we want to just trade for an object and be on our way, I think that's fine. But if we persuade him, maybe he could like help us get in with the spirit merchants, if that's something that we even like, you know what I mean? Maybe Finn wants to trade food one day, you never know. So I'm just thinking about that. I don't know, I do really want to make a check since we're in our first scene here. Shrine magic. Yeah, shrine magic is right. Okay, we look down at the table. We can ask some yes or no questions. Maybe, does he have anything that might be useful for us? Because we could put some stuff in our backpack, right? Does he have any kind of cooking stuff? Good question. We've got a 2 and a 6, which is that cool little crow on there is fantastic. A 2 and a 6 is an 8, which means yes, but he does have some cooking stuff, but maybe it's only one thing. Maybe it's like a pot. I'm going to say it's a pot. We're making an executive decision. And Finn looks down at it and he goes, well, I really want to help you out, mister. But you don't have much that I want, except maybe that pot. What's going on with that pot? And I don't know if this guy's a trickster or not. I mean, he's just an ancient power. So a lot of times, actually, you can roll twice on the challenge thing to get like ancient power trickster, right? You can start combining them. I was just trying to do a simple one at first, but you can absolutely roll twice on the challenge chart to then get double things you can combine to better define out your challenge, right? But, sheesh, you could even roll again now, later in your scene, once you learn more about the challenge. But Finn goes, what's up with that? I mean, like, is it magical or is it just a regular pot? And we're gonna roll to see, is it magical? And I actually, because of the shrine magic here, so we can use our tags when it comes to our yes or no questions, I'm gonna give this thing a +1 because of our tag for shrine magic when I ask my yes or no question. Here we go. That is a 4 + 1, which makes it a no. But it's not magical, but maybe something else is. Maybe he's like, now my red-haired friend, it's not magical, but I can make it magical if the memory is good enough, all right? And Finn goes, okay, well, what memory could I give you? And I actually want to make a check here. Now, let's roll our acorn dice for fun. We're going to use lucky, and we're going to use our unknown magic. So we're going to give ourselves +2 on this, and we're going to make our actual first check here. He's going to try to persuade him, and he's going to say, well, I'm kind of down on my luck, mister, and I'm on my way. You see, it turns out I'm actually kind of magical myself, and I'm on my way to learn more about it. You'd actually be helping me out a lot if you could give me something cool to help me on my travels. So what about a simple memory for the magic pot? And we're going to roll kind of like a persuasion thing here. And I actually want to bring up this page right here to help remind us how all this shenanigans works, you know, with yes or no's and the oracle and everything else, you know what I mean? If we get a success or if we get a failure, stuff like that. And I think, is it actually on this GM screen? It is. Okay, so we don't actually even need to bring that up. Very good, very good. I've got it right here. All right, I knew this thing would be handy, so I'm going to keep up that, and we're going to go back over here. Okay, so we're going to get a +2 to this, and he's just going to say, what do you think about that, mister? And that is 2 5s, making it a 10 + 2. It rolled there at the last second, but 10 + 2, 10 or more is a success. And if we want to do this officially, we could absolutely scratch a tag to make it a 4 so we can get that full persuasion power. Or we could just mark 2, but I'm honestly thinking like, maybe this just deserves a quick outcome. And so I'm going to say, yes, this just deserves a quick outcome instead of a detailed outcome, even though we did a detailed challenge. This doesn't feel like a big detailed situation to me, but it was really fun to put all this stuff together. So you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and make an executive decision and just say, we're just going to do the quick outcome. And he's going to say, all right, I'll do that for you. You you seem like a nice enough guy, but you're gonna need to give me a memory. So I think Finn is going to give him a memory, maybe just like a nice memory, not an important one, but one of him like just cooking bread with his mom. Maybe like a memory that he likes, but isn't crazy important. And he's gonna be like, all right, that'll do. And I think like the memory fades from his mind. Like he sees him and his mom like cooking at this hearth, and they're like baking all this fun bread together, and they're kind of like laughing, and then they're selling the bread to the people who are coming by, and the memory just kind of fades from his mind. But I think he has hundreds of these memories of doing this with his mom. Maybe this was just, one where it seemed like a more fun day. And we're going to get a magical pot, and I will rewrite this later, and I can actually write better because that looks ugly. All right, cool. And then as he hands him the pot, I think that we're moving into resolve now, everybody. We're following our solo gameplay loop. We did our action, now we're moving into resolve. And I think I'm wiping away all the tags. Very fun to just be able to write those and wipe them away. As we're resolving that, he hands him the pot, and I think as he does, he smiles and he goes, well, thanks. It seems that today we both helped each other out. And then the shrine and the table and everything just vanishes from this area. I'm thinking narratively that little trader guy got sent here as some kind of a punishment in the middle of the forest instead of being able to trade in like a normal market or like in a town. You know what I mean? Like, fine, we're going to send you to the middle of the forest and you can try to trade there, and you're cursed until you can't be there anymore. Like, that's my little third wall breaking idea there. So we finally helped him out and he left. We didn't get his name, but I think if we ever see that guy again, he might recognize us for helping him out, right? So we can remember that. And that handles our first scene. Now we've got a self-heating pot that I think Finn's really excited about, and he looks down at Patch and he's like, well, what do you think, boy? Looks like we're gonna get to cook something fun tonight. And he shows him the pot and he like smells it and he's like, sick. And that ends our first scene. This game is crazy to me. Like, counting the intro and everything I said in the beginning, my recording is at 1 hour. I'm 59 minutes right now. So I did one scene in 59 minutes. This game is always crazy to me. I remember when I was recording those first 4 episodes, they took me forever because of all the detailed stuff and me just sitting there thinking for long periods of time. These recordings took me a long time. So what I want to say is, like, if you guys are playing this game and you find yourself not getting anywhere or it takes you a long time to get through a little session, have no fear, you're not alone in that, all right? And remember that there is a good enough session rule, all right? So if you feel exhausted or you run out of time, after this one scene, I think it'd be good to go on and do something else, right? But because we're doing YouTube things here, I want to give you guys more in this first episode. We're going to continue on. But just know, you're not alone, right? It's all about the little things. And so sometimes thinking hard or describing out stuff a lot can challenge it, all right? But that goes without saying, of course, I cut out a lot of the silence and me thinking and stuff like that in my videos, so it won't be that long for you. Of course not. Okay, moving on. We're going to move on to our next scene, which means we're going to do transition here. And transition can be pretty much a whole lot, all right? Transition could be scenes in itself, right? So your transition scene, you could still do descriptors, and you could still, like, say we're going to camp, and you could do like little descriptors for your camp, and you can do all kinds of stuff. Transition is basically everything that'll get you until your next challenge or important moment where you're going to need to take action, all right? For me, the best way to describe transition is like you're in a room, then the transition is you going upstairs and down hallways to the next room. You know what I mean? And those hallways could have pictures on the walls. Those hallways could have people in them. You could stop and talk to them and do all kinds of stuff. There could be way more in a hallway in a transition than just transition. So we're moving on to transition. Needless to say. And I'm wondering how much we want to transist. We started in the morning, so it's definitely not nighttime yet. We had one little encounter, so I think we're going to spend some time continuing to walk. And I think right now, and I've even included it in this scene thing right here, to ask yes or no questions if you're ever unsure, right? And so setting up your second scene could be good. So for us, let's ask some yes or no questions. Do we come upon any kind of civilization here in the afternoon? Is there anything else we might stumble upon to get us out of the forest, or do we stay in the forest? Do we come upon civilization? Yes or no? And I'm not going to add any tag bonuses to this yes or no, because we don't have any scene tags anyway. 33, okay, which is another double, which makes it a yes. But, so it's a civilization, but it might not be like a big one. But we have a random event that's going to happen here in this scene as well. So let's roll for our random event. I like these pebble dice a lot, dude. That is a 31, which makes it a 4. Again, environment change. So random event to me, an environment change means that we see environment change is 4. We are out of the forest. So we've now emerged out of the forest. Maybe we're in like some plains plains area. And right here on the edge of the forest, there is some kind of small civilization, like a small village of some kind, right here on the edge. And I'm wondering if Finn's mark could say anything about anything on his arm, right? We see in the art piece, there's a mark on his arm. We talked about it in session 0. There was a mystical guy who put this mark on his arm and told him that he was meant for a bigger thing and said, now you must follow this mark. And it burns on his arm whenever he falls off track, you know what I mean? Or doesn't go a certain way. But I'm wondering if it tingles a little bit whenever he goes in the right direction, you know what I mean? Kind of like a weird spider sense kind of thing. And I like weird, mysterious magic in my games, if you haven't noticed. And I'm wondering if it tingles at all when we look at this village. Like, is it guiding us to go inside? Let's roll yes or no. We got a 44. I'm not going to roll another random event, but 44 is yeah, which is 8 again. So yes, it does. It tingles a little bit to tell us to go inside, but it's not that intense. It's very light. And Finn looks down at Patch and he's like, well, boy, it looks like there's something in here that maybe we need to see or something. So let's go. And now we're going to start describing out our next scene. This village, right? Let's get some descriptors for the village. So we're going to come down here to our scene descriptors roll chart, and we're going to roll on this to get what kind of village it is. Here we go. That is 42. Morning. It's a sad village. Oh, goodness. Okay. And descriptor. We have action and descriptors is what I always usually like to use. 24. Corrupted. Oh, it's a sad, corrupted village. Oh, no. Okay. So I think as Finn and Patch take their first steps into this village, at first glance, everything seems ordinary enough. A little bit less than a dozen cottages huddled together. This was a small village, right? Maybe little half-waste, like stone walls that go around it. There are little trails of smoke that drift from some of the chimneys, basically signifying that, you know, people are here and active. There are little gardens next to the homes as well, but I think at second glance, the little gardens appear neglected, you know, like they're dying. Little flower areas, maybe like potatoes, you know, like some basil or something here, and it all looks neglected. And that's something that Finn picks up on right away because as one of his tags, he has fishing and foraging. He knows about vegetables and wildlife and stuff. And there's a well with a bunch of like wagon tracks that are all going around the well in the dirt. As we walk through the village, my mind immediately thinks from mourning and from cursed. There are no children running around. There's no farmers at work in the fields. No dogs barking. No birds. I mean, strangers coming in from the road. There should be dogs barking, but there isn't. And I think the first thing we do see is a cemetery. 100%. Mourning, cemetery, cursed, yes. And I think this cemetery occupies nearly a whole third of this village itself. There are rows of crooked headstones, just rows of them, over a little hill, right? Because we're in the plains now, right? So over a little hill, even like looking down at the homes below, like the hill goes up, we could see it like above the little villages, the little houses. And I think there's a bunch of fresh earth that we can see among many of the graves. Some of them even freshly marked with flowers, ones that aren't very much so alive, dead flowers. Like something happened here recently. So like this village is 100% in mourning. That moves us on to the second word, corrupted. I think many of the gravestones are chipped away at, even the fresh ones, the fresh nicely sticks and the fresh stones that have been put here in these grave sites are like chipped at, they're like cut across, symbols have been like carved into them, and it has to extend past the cemetery. There is faint black discoloration that's going to be across portions of the stone walls here. I think from a distance, from the road, it probably looked like moss, but now that we're getting closer, it's not green, it's actually dark, like black, and it's like spreading in the walls. And even some of the nearby trees on the edge of the forest look a little sickly. So something in this village has happened, and the people are now grieving. Some people are alive, there's still some smoke in the chimney, but some folks died, something happened. We gotta figure out what it is. Our mark was basically like, yeah, go here, figure that out. So, all right. And do you see how, just from 2 little words, when I'm explaining out my scene, I did my yes or no questions, I rolled on my 2 little words, and then I just let my imagination run to set this whole scene, right? That's like 101 right here. And going through all those little extra details, that's Legend in the Mist right there. So now that we've done our scene, we need to start seeing if there's a task here or a simple challenge or what. I think here 100% let's just do a normal task. I don't think we should do a big challenge here, but if you guys think so, you could absolutely always do a yes or no. Even though the last challenge we rolled up, we ended up just doing a quick task instead of a detailed anyway, I think that all is fine. All right. I think that as we walk into this village, I have a couple of ideas for a task here, what we're trying to figure out. We could either try to knock on some doors and talk to people, or we could use our unknown magic for the first time and try to sense what is going on here, because we have unknown magic and keen senses here. So we could use those, but I also think this would be a great time to cook food for some people that are grieving, right? Well, while I'm thinking, here in the middle of the video, this is the dog that Patch is designed off of. This is my dog Macaroni, if you're new around here. He's always at my feet, always. I even used to have a dog bed down there, but he didn't like it. He started laying on the carpet instead. But this is Macaroni. Yeah, just wanted to show you guys that's, yeah, good boy. You want to stay? All right. So, he's laying his face on the table. That's just adorable. Maybe we should use our keen senses and our magical stuff anyway, because maybe there's more going on before we even knock on the doors, right? Maybe there's some kind of magic at play here. So let's do that. Let's make us a magical roll. We're going to use our unknown magic and our keen senses, which gives us a +2. And we're going to let Patch smell around as well. So we're going to use our animal senses from him as well, giving us a total of 3. In the box, please. That looks like, is that a 6 and a 1? That is a 6 and a 1, but 6 and a 1 is 7, +3 makes it a 10. And a 10, if we look down here, 10 or more is a success. Okay, so now we're gonna ask some yes or no questions. If there is magic here, we know it. We know where it is, we know what's going on. So let's ask some questions. These aren't for you. He wants to eat them. So, is the magic coming from more than just the graveyard? Because in my description, in my head, I described it as spreading out from the graveyard. So is it coming from more than just that? Yes or no? That looks like a 4 and a 3, makes it a 7. So yes, but it is coming from more than just the graveyard, okay? But I'm thinking, but maybe it isn't the village. Maybe it's the edge of the forest. Okay, since we slimmed it down a little bit, I want to ask, is it the edge of the forest? I'm going to give it a +2 just to slim it down more with no extra but. What is that? 5 and a 5, which is a yes, but it's a random event. So we see magically that it's coming from the forest and from the graveyard surrounding this here little village. And it's just quiet. Dead quiet, and something happens, a random event. What do you think, Mac? Random event? What do you think? All right, so let's roll for our random event. That is an 11. New danger emerges. Oh, my brain already went somewhere. So without even asking any more questions, I'm just gonna say, okay, we've got this. So as we're looking and we're feeling for all the magic, we see this. For some reason, we can sense that there's dark. For some reason, we can sense there's dark magic coming from these places. Maybe it's like a weird, strange aura, like a little bit of a mist. And Finn doesn't really understand what he's even looking at because he's never done this before. And he's like, with the forest? What does that even mean? And as we're looking, something big or something starts moving in the forest, and there's like this crazy loud noise. I imagine like almost like screaming. And as that happens, Finn looks up, and one of the doors on one of the village houses swings open, and there's a person that's like, quickly, inside, quickly. And we're gonna make a check here. I want to make a physical check because we have to run across this village and get in that door before whatever it is reaches us. And we don't really have any physical anything. We don't have physical nothing. So we're kind of just gonna run for it. We can use lucky. Lucky is kind of a catch-all for everything. So we can use lucky, and we're just gonna roll to see if we can make it in time. What is that in there? A 6? So 10. Success. We run over, we make it into the door. But I think as we're about to enter into the door, we can see there is something carved into the door. Maybe. Okay, earlier I said there was carvings in the headstones. I'm also thinking there's the same carvings in the doors, and we clock that. We see it. And since our magic stuff's activated, maybe it's glowing a little bit. And we look back and we see on the headstone it's glowing a little bit. But it's not the black. Maybe it's like a bluish, like a protective kind of thing. And we see it in the door as we step inside, and then the door slams behind us and someone locks it. And now we're inside of this village home with whoever this person is, and we've just ran into this whatever is out there that is corrupting and killing these people. I don't know what it is. Crazy. Okay, how about this? What do you guys think is out there? Corrupting these people, hurting these people. We're about to meet some new NPCs, all right? Which I totally should have rolled to name that. Hold on. We're going to use one of these names for that merchant guy, just in case he ever comes back around, all right? We're going to roll for this merchant guy. That's what we're going to do. Okay, we're going to roll a d6. This is a d6 roll chart. 1, we have Drafta, Tova, and Matthias. I want his name to be Matthias. He was Matthias the merchant, just because that rhymes. So we're going to underline this so I know. And this name was given to us by 3 blind mice. So that is who the merchant was, Matthias. It's going to go on our canon. So if we ever encounter this magical merchant again, sick, we've got his name. Okay, I don't know if he told it to us, but at least now we know. Here's the second thing. We're about to encounter a bunch more NPCs. There could be a whole family in here. Could just be one guy. Could be one dude grieving. You know what I mean? Either way, we're going to have to name him. So you guys in the comments suggest some more stuff. As you can see, we have 6. We have 14 more spots open. Suggest up to 3 NPC names. I'll roll and then pick one. All right? So suggest some names. Secondly, what do you think could be cursing the forest and the graveyard and the people having had passed away? What do you think? Throw some suggestions, because if there's enough, maybe we'll do a roll chart. Maybe I'll just pick my favorite. I don't actually know. We did 2 scenes here. Weird, crazy scenes. But we had to do a full explanation at the beginning as well anyway, so, you know, hopefully this recording isn't too crazy long. But welcome back to Legend of the Mist, everybody. Man, what did we not do? We didn't invoke any negative tags today, which I think we should have, but I'm not worried about it. Everything's still fun. We're having fun. Let me know what you think so far, all right? In comments below. I want to make sure I get this video up on time, so I'm gonna get out of here. But thank you so much for watching, everybody. Leave a like, remember, for more episodes if you want it. Check out links in the description, and I appreciate all you guys so much. Enjoy yourselves, and take a seat on the couch, and roll initiative by subscribing, or at least until you find yourselves in a strange, cursed village yourself. Roll on that, weirdos, and I'll see you next time. Toodaloo! Yeah. You want to say bye, Maggie? Bye-bye, Maggie. He's got a bow tie on. All right.
Just like, share, and subscribe. Just like, share.